Your brain literally rewires itself when you speak two languages. Most people think that learning another language is just about memorizing words, translating grammar, and surviving a vacation in a foreign country. But the deeper you look into it, the more you realize language changes far more than just how you communicate. It can physically alter your perception, your emotional reactions, your attention systems, and even how your brain functions at a structural level. I first noticed this in myself. A while back, as I got more comfortable using English, I noticed something strange. Sometimes, I would catch myself automatically thinking in English instead of my native language. And weirdly, my thinking felt completely different when that happened. I felt more analytical, more emotionally detached. The decisions I was making felt sharper and more logical compared to when I thought in my native tongue. That got me obsessed with a single question: how deeply can a language actually rewire the human brain? When I started digging into the neuroscience, the answers I found were far bigger and stranger than I ever expected. One of the most fascinating examples of this comes from a remote indigenous community in Australia called the Cook Thayora. In English or standard languages, we use a relative frame of reference. We anchor the entire universe to our own bodies. We say things like, "The coffee cup is to my left," or "Take a step to your right." You are the center of the geometry. But in Cook Thayora, the words left and right literally do not exist. Instead, they use absolute cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, for everything. They wouldn't look at you and say, "Hey, there's a snake on your left leg." They would say, "There is a snake on your southwest leg." If they want you to move an item on a table, they'll say, "Move the cup slightly north-northwest." Because their language demands it, they must constantly know exactly where they are facing, at all times. Their brains are continuously, unconsciously tracking their direction and environmental cues. In fact, because they are always perfectly aware of their orientation and the exact position of the sun, they can tell you the precise time of day without ever looking at a clock. Their language forces a level of spatial thinking that maps time directly onto the physical landscape. This is proof that language isn't just a tool to describe reality. It actively trains your perception, forcing your brain to practice specific mental patterns until they become the automatic way you experience existence. So, what happens when your brain is balancing two of these completely different structural systems? Brain scans show that a bilingual brain looks radically different under the hood compared to a monolingual one. They develop significantly stronger connectivity between regions handling attention control, language selection, and task switching. And here is the crazy part. When a bilingual person is speaking one language, the other language never fully shuts off. It's always running in the background. That means even right now, if you speak two languages, your brain is doing an immense amount of invisible heavy lifting. Every single millisecond, it is suppressing the wrong language, hunting for the correct words, switching grammar systems, and modulating pronunciation patterns on the fly. Your brain is basically running a low-level, high-stakes multitasking operation 24/7. It is a continuous mental control exercise. And over years, that constant cognitive friction physically reshapes the hardware. This constant systemic shifting doesn't just change your brain structure, it changes your actual personality and how you react to the world. A lot of multilingual people report feeling like a slightly different person depending on the tongue they are speaking. They might feel highly emotional or expressive in their native language, more formal in Japanese, or fiercely analytical in English. Neurologically, this makes perfect sense. Language is deeply tethered to memory, culture, and social conditioning. Your native language carries what psychologists call a psychologically hot footprint. It holds the visceral, emotional weight of your childhood, memories of fear, family, playground arguments, and raw comfort. A second language, especially one learned later in life or through study, feels psychologically cool. It is more clinical, more academic, and carries less autobiographical baggage. Scientists call this the foreign language effect. When you switch to your second language, your emotional bias drops dramatically. Because the words lack those deep-seated visceral triggers, your brain bypasses your reactive emotional pathways and routes, processing through your logical, deliberative networks. Same person, same brain, different language, completely different cognitive state. The ultimate benefit of this lifelong mental weightlifting routine appears at the end of life. Decades of constant language switching build something called cognitive reserve, which is essentially your brain's capacity to improvise and find alternative ways to get the job done when its primary pathways are damaged. Studies consistently show that lifelong bilinguals often develop dementia symptoms 4 to 5 years later than monolinguals. What's even wilder is that brain scans of bilingual Alzheimer's patients often show more actual physical brain damage than monolinguals exhibiting the exact same symptoms. Yet, they still function at the same level. Their brains had trained for decades to reroute traffic. They built automated backup generators long before the storm arrived. Now I have to give you a reality check here, because the internet absolutely loves to exaggerate this. You've probably seen articles claiming bilingualism makes you a flawless, superhuman multitasker. The science is a lot more grounded than that. When rigorous replication studies control for things like income, education, and cultural backgrounds, many of those massive generalized intelligence advantages shrink. Bilingualism doesn't magically give you a higher IQ. In fact, it comes with a distinct cognitive tax. Because your brain is managing two massive libraries simultaneously, bilinguals consistently experience more tip-of-the-tongue moments. Word retrieval can be slightly slower, and vocabulary depth in each individual language can sometimes be slightly narrower. The brain isn't a magical, infinite engine. It intentionally trades raw, singular lexical speed for high-level systemic flexibility. It's an optimization choice, but honestly, the single biggest lesson I took away from researching all of this wasn't even about language itself. It was a profound reminder of just how radically adaptive the human brain really is. Your brain is not fixed. It is a living, shifting organ that configures its physical structure around the recurring daily friction you expose it to. What you force your brain to process every single day is, quite literally, what your brain becomes. If you've noticed this language or personality shift in yourself, drop a comment below and let me know what languages you speak and how it changes your thinking. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.